Hello and welcome to our webinar today on the 10 types of entrepreneurs, aligning your business with your entrepreneurial DNA. I'm your moderator, Jenny Alton from the New York Small Business Development Center Central Office. Today's webinar is the second in this brand and marketing strategy series. The first was last week, the L.I.S.T.E.N method, transforming small business content marketing. And the third will be next week on Wednesday, the 20th at noon, Navigating the Customer Journey Principles. And I will drop a link for the playlist for this series into the chat. So if you missed last week's and want to get caught up, you can do that with the recording. This webinar is brought to you by the Brockport SBDC, a regional center of the NYSBDC. The NYSBDC is a U.S. Small Business Administration resource partner with regional centers at higher education institutions and outreach offices at other locations across New York State. Our free advising, education, research, and advocacy services are made possible by funding from the SBA, New York State, and our host campuses. Today, I am so pleased to again present Sean Atkinson, brand and marketing strategist and owner of Majority Media. A few housekeeping items before we turn the time over to Sean, though. We are recording today. We will share links to a PDF copy of the slides and the recording in a follow-up email. Attendees are muted and will not be on camera. If you have any questions during the presentation, please don't hesitate to type them in the Q&A box as they come up. You can open Zoom's Q&A box from the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. And if you are not seeing that button there at the bottom, click on the three dots for more and look for it in that menu. We'll take some pauses for questions throughout the presentation. And I'm sorry that there was a delay on last week's follow-up email. So you should have gotten it today or will get it today from Zoom. So look for that in your inbox. All right, now with that, I will turn the time over to Sean.
Thank you so much. I want to cover a couple of things real quick because I realized I was thankful enough to get feedback from the first session. And I just want to highlight a couple of things. I think it'll make it easier for people to follow this presentation. Um, First of all, I have follow-up information that aligns with this. This is really just an introduction. It's not meant for you to grasp and be able to act on everything right now. So if you go to my website, there's an article, and then there's a workbook that has templates that will actually walk you through the things that we're covering. And then the other piece is this is telling a story. So the listen method is really about understanding and validating your audience and making sure that there's a business idea. And then today, what we're covering is the entrepreneurial side of it so that you understand your business journey, the challenges, and some of the milestones that you would want to be able to hit. And then the next installment in the series is taking that information and putting it together and applying it to the actual customer journey. So it's in pieces because there's no way I could walk you through everything in one. But if I also try to put too much in one thing, it would overwhelm people. And I'm good for doing that. So I wanted to be able to break this up in parts so it would actually make sense to people. So if you focus on the listen method, it gives you something to be able to do where you start to understand and validate business idea and understand the audience. And then once you're done with that, then it makes sense to be able to start looking at your business side of things. You want to start with the audience first, and then you can start to think about how you're going to apply that to your business journey and how you can build an idea and a business model around that. So today, we're taking a look at the 10 types of entrepreneurs and understanding your entrepreneurial DNA. Oh, one sec, there we go. And the entrepreneurial journey is really about the entrepreneurs always search for change and respond to it and exploits it as an opportunity. And that's a quote from Peter Drucker. What I really want you to be able to think about with this is when we think about entrepreneurs, there are different types, and each type is going to lead to different challenges, milestones. There's going to be things that you can attribute to your personality. Once you can say, okay, well, I know this lines more with what I have in mind, then you can kind of forecast what to expect. And it takes some of the guesswork out and it allows you to mitigate risk. And overall, the strategic value of knowing your entrepreneurial type is, again, forecasting. You'll be able to highlight potential challenges. You'll look for milestones. You'll be able to mitigate those risks so that you know what you're getting yourself into. And I can share stories about that as well. So it's something where when I started out, I knew I wanted to come in and disrupt the status quo. So I had worked on the corporate side for years, and it's something where I helped the businesses that were on top stay on top. But a lot of times, what would happen is when I talked to people and they said, okay, well, oh, you're in advertising, you're in marketing. I would love to be able to learn how to do this. I would love to be able to learn how to do that. When I brought the idea back to the companies that I worked for, they said they don't have the budget and we don't have the time. So it was something where after a point, I just got to the point where I was saying, if you're not going to allow me to help them, then I need to step out and start my own business to be able to help them. So that is going to lead into one of the variations, and that's going to lead into the 10 types. For me, I am three, a disruptor. But let's look through the list on its whole. There's the assimilators, the innovators, the disruptors, the scalers, the socialpreneurs, the serial entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs, the lifestyle entrepreneurs, the technopreneurs, and the franchisers. Now, when we think about in a simulator, there's something where if you want to start a business, but you're not really that confident in your idea, or you are spending out of your savings, so you have concerns and you want to be able to launch your business, but you want to kind of take the safest path possible, that's most likely going to be in a simulator. And a simulator is really someone that identifies gaps in an existing market and creates unique value propositions. That's just another way of saying they look to see what exists, and for the little things that aren't being addressed within what already exists, and then they step in and try to say, well, I know there's already solutions out there, but here's how I do it a little bit differently. So they're assimilating into an industry that already exists and then trying to carve out a piece of it for themselves. So normally what happens in these situations, uh, one sec, here we go. Normally, what happens in these situations is you'll step out into a market and you're really just trying to figure out how to be able to make your mark. So, Warby Parker is an example. They identified a gap in the eyewear market. Everything had higher prices, but there was a lack of direct to consumer brands. So, if you wanted to be able to get glasses, you had to go to specific places to be able to get them. And it was a process that not everybody wanted to be able to follow. Then there's innovators. And an innovator is someone that's creating something that never existed before. And what you're really looking at with this is you're saying, okay, well, Shark Tank isn't a great example because there are a lot of people that are creating things and introducing people to new concepts, new ways of doing things that may have never existed. There's an experience that they want people to be able to have, as opposed to addressing something that's a challenge or a struggle. They're giving them something that they didn't know existed. They're giving them opportunities, a possibility. And that is something that comes with its own challenges and its milestones, but it's creating, as opposed to stepping into an industry that already exists. This is something where you're creating an industry or you're creating a niche and it's allowing you to be able to do it from there. So an example would be Sarah Blakely and Spanx, where she created footless pantyhose, revolutionizing women's shapewear, and started with her small savings and no industry experience. Yes, there will be slides shared, and there's actually going to be more content that comes along with this as we go. The key takeaway is innovators solve everyday problems creatively by bringing a new product to market. Now, the disruptor is someone that says, I know there's solutions out there. There's a better way to be able to do it. So they're not necessarily creating something new. They're creating a new way to be able to do it. So one of the things that I tend to tell people is the game doesn't change, the process does. So the system, the foundation, the basic things are always going to be the same. There's going to be an audience that has expectations or needs, and then there's the people that step in to be able to fill those. And a disruptor is someone that says, I know you've been doing it this way for a long time, but here's a better, more efficient way. Here's how you can get this reward. Here's how you can get a different way to be able to get the results. So sometimes you can bring an idea to market, and what you're looking at is there's only a certain way to be able to do it. But a disruptor may come in, and this disruptor may say, you know what? Yes, that is a use case, but let me tell you all the other ways that you can solve this problem. And here's how I do it. So they're coming in and they're disrupting the status quo. And with that, there's a certain level of challenges that come with it because you're not only have the challenges of introducing something new and breaking a habit, but you're also disrupting the pre-existing thing that's already out there for the businesses. So this one has its own set of challenges because you're not only trying to introduce a new idea to an audience, but you're telling everyone that's already been generating money a certain way, I'm coming in and I'm going to show people how to be able to do it a better way. And eventually you're going to have to adjust to me. I won't have to adjust to you. So that's the difference between a disruptor and an assimilator. A simulator is going to step in and say, I'm going to figure out how to do things similar to the way that you're doing it. And then disruptor is going to say, no, you need to adjust to what I'm doing. And then we have scalers. A scaler is focused more on rapidly growing a business while maintaining quality and structure. So there are some people that will step in and say, you know what, I can build this idea. This is going to be a starter, but my ultimate goal is much larger. And an example of that would be Jeff Bezos. He scaled from an online bookstore to a global e-commerce giant and then maintained operational efficiency and company culture during that rapid growth. Now, the scalar is important because it's not enough to be able to have a specific idea that you can bring to market because some people can start a business and they can generate enough to be able to get by. But if you're someone that has lofty goals as far as revenue goes, then at some point you have to start looking at how you'll be able to scale. And when scale is just another way of saying, you got the business to a certain point, now how do you grow beyond that? So there's times where you hear people say that there's growth stagnation or there's growth stall. It's they took that business idea, the initial one, as far as they could, but now they have to start thinking about how to be able to take that to another level. Because if you start hiring other employees and things like that, there's more operational costs. So every time, if you're going into it with the goal of driving in more revenue, then you're also looking at ways to be able to scale because you can't continue to expect to be able to generate money doing the same thing. Sometimes you have to be able to look beyond that, and that can be reaching out to new audiences. That can be doing something where you gather feedback and realize there's other use cases within the audience that you already have so that you expand on your product or your service. And that's where it says maintain operational efficiency and company culture during the rapid growth. A lot of times, what happens is when people try to scale, one of the mistakes that they make is they try to go so far into scaling and growing the business that they forget the very thing that got them there in the first place. So, the great way to be able to do it is to, when you're going to scale, you want to be able to keep the base things that is the core of who you are and to your audience. You want to keep that the same, but you want to introduce other things into the process that allow you to be able to scale without changing the expectations and the perception of the people who have decided that they already like you. Because it's a lot easier to maintain an audience or a customer that you already have than to go out and find another. And then there's the social entrepreneur. And this is someone that's focusing on making a social impact. It can be accessibility, it can be sustainability. There's things where culturally they want to be able to step in and make a difference, but they also know that they have a business that they have to run, and they have to be able to figure out a way to be able to manage both. So in this case, the case study would be Tom's Shoes. They founded one for one business model, and they donate a pair of shoes for every pair of shoes sold. So this way, they do generate money, but they also pull at the heartstrings of someone and allow them to be able to give back while getting for themselves. So this is something where it's not a specific type of entrepreneur that you can say, well, this is the only thing that I'm going to do. But this is a strategy or a tactic that you can implement when you are also another type of entrepreneur. So where I'm listing these out, it's not something where it's a hard and fast rule. You may hear these and say, well, I'm a bit of this and I'm a bit of that. The point is for you to be able to put a name to it and start to understand the challenges, the milestones, some of the key traits that come along with it, so that when you're trying to think through your brand strategy, when you're thinking through your business journey, you have something that you can use as a frame of reference. And you can say, well, I know that this is what I'm doing, but you could never really put a name to it. This will help you explain it. So when we're talking about brand strategy, one of the things you have to be able to do is explain yourself in a way that people can understand. And that's one of the points of going through this and making sure that people understand how to be able to explain themselves and find the ways to be able to connect with the actual audience. And then we have serial entrepreneurs. And these are people that have a bunch of business ideas. And normally, what they'll do is they'll start an idea, they'll get the business up and running, and then they'll sell it so that they can get to their next business idea. And serial entrepreneurs are known far and wide. There are a bunch of people that build a business so that they can sell it, whereas there are other people that build the business so that they can perhaps hand it off to someone else in the family, hand it down, or they plan to be able to do it for the rest of their lives. So it's something that it gives you the opportunity. If you're someone that says, you know what, I have a lot of ideas that I think that I can run with, then that puts you in a category of being a serial entrepreneur. It gives you the mindset of saying, you know what, I don't have to get so caught up in making sure that every single detail is as great as it needs to be, because I'm only building it up to be able to sell it and let someone else run with the idea, because I have 10 other, five others, two others that I know that I want to be able to run with. So where we talked about the MVP, which is minimum viable product. It's getting something ready to be able to go to market without necessarily feeling like you have to perfect it. So serial entrepreneurs, more than not, are going to start something with an MVP. They're going to bring something to market that they can test out. They can get it big enough for people to gain interest in it and say, you know what, I would love to be able to take that off your hands. I can see how I can take this and use it for years to come. They will sell that to that person, make their profit, and then take that money and then invest in their next business idea. So an example of this would be Richard Branson, founded over 400 companies under the Virgin brand. Ventures spanned multiple industries: music, airlines, space tourism. There's a lot of advantages to being a serial entrepreneur because as long as you can create viable ideas, then you always have new opportunities for revenue streams. So where we're seeing AI come up, and there's a lot of different things for people that are on the copywriting side, now this is asking them to be able to make adjustments. A serial entrepreneur is someone that can say, you know what, I don't care what comes up, I'll always be able to make the adjustment to whatever technology, whatever the audience, whatever the demand is, I can make an adjustment and find a way to be able to monetize it. So one of the reasons that we're walking through these things in different stages is because I want you to have a really good understanding of the process. Because when you can understand the process, then you can start to find places within it that you can monetize and where you bring value. Because again, if you can find a way to make something convenient, people are willing to pay you for it. So the better you understand the process of a challenge, a struggle, or whatever someone may be thinking, the more places you can find where it's something that may be inconvenient and you make it convenient. And then that's a reason that you're bringing value and that person wants to be able to work with you. Now, we've gone through a few, so I just want to stop and see if there's any questions.
We do not have any questions at this time, so carry on, Sean.
Okay. All right. And now here's the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is someone that works within an existing organization and they come up with new initiatives, ways to be able to grow the company from within. So I will give you an example. on my corporate days, I got to the point where I was a program manager. So I would go out with the salespeople, and when they would go in and they would pitch an idea, my job was to go in and listen and make sure that whatever it was that they were pitching aligned with what the actual customer or the audience's goal was. So if I went to a publisher and the publisher said, well, we're very protective of our audience, but we really need to be able to get more sales, and we're looking to try to get in touch with these kind of brands, I would know whether or not we have something that already exists, or if I needed to listen for a way to be able to go back to the company that I worked with and work with the product team and say, this is something that we need to create, because I think this is something that's not only going to be something to get us this client, but it's something that can get us multiple clients. There's a calling for this. What they're asking for makes sense. So we should look at ways to be able to create it, add value, and then start to pitch it to other companies that have similar challenges and struggles. So an entrepreneur is someone that would say, okay, you know what? I know what our pre-existing product suite or service suite looks like, but how can we take something that already exists and look for other ways to be able to scale? So an entrepreneur is also someone that is a scaler. They're looking at ways to be able to take what's already exists and not upset the apple cart. But what they're looking to do is they're looking to be able to grow that out. So this is something that's going to be on the corporate side, where if you're an employee, a consultant, you can always come in and you don't necessarily need to change everything. You just have to identify what's working and what's not working. And then if you can make what's not working more efficient, then that's where your consulting comes in. That's where they'll bring you back in and they want to be able to work with you ongoing. A lot of times what happens is people will come in and they will try to change everything. And there's some things that were already working just fine, and it's just because they want to put their stamp on something. The more strategic way to be able to do that is to come in, identify what's not working, and make a change there, because that is what's going to allow them to be able to keep the customers that they already have, but introduce them to new ones or more efficient ways to be able to see to the ones that they're trying to address. And then there's the lifestyle entrepreneurs. They prioritize work-life balance, personal fulfillment alongside business success. So they're the people that say, you know what? Yes, I want to be able to have a business, but I also want to be able to have a life outside of it. So how do I be able to, how am I able to create something where it doesn't need me? So these people are people that I would say are more business owners than people that run a business. They created a business idea, they created a business model, and then they said, you know what, I need to hire smart so that I can have other people be able to take care of different tasks so it doesn't require me to be part of every single decision that's made. So ultimately, if you're someone that's going to be doing business for a long time and you want to branch out beyond being a solopreneur and you want to have that work-life balance, uh, the lifestyle entrepreneur is something that you can aspire to. It's something where a lot of small business owners, they end up starting their business, especially solopreneurs, and they have big asks of their families. Where they'll say, you know what, a lot of people think, well, when you start your own job, you're going to have more time. No, you have less time. You actually have to pour more of yourself into being able to establish the business, build the business. And one of the things that happens along the way is you end up missing some events. People with regular jobs don't necessarily understand why you don't want to hang out as much, because you can't really do that the same way. But as you start to evolve and you start to scale and you start to be able to identify different ways to be able to do things, more efficient ways to be able to do things, it allows you to be able to start to transition into that lifestyle entrepreneur, someone that can spend a 4-hour work week and still generate the same level of money that they would if it was something where they were involved with every single decision that was being made. This is where you get to the point where you want to be able to turn things into being a good trainer, as opposed to someone that knows how to do something. So one of the things that I struggled with when I first started my business was I always knew how to be able to do things, but what I had to learn how to do was how to be able to explain things to people so that they could do it themselves. So in some cases, there's DIY. There's do it yourself. There's done with you, where there's coaching and consulting, and you step in and you can guide someone through something, but you don't necessarily say, just give it to me and I'll take care of it and then hand you back the finished product. And then there's the technopreneurs. The technopreneurs focus is basically technology-based ventures, and they're dealing with rapid technology. So when you hear a lot about startups and you want to think about all of these people that are on the tech side, you hear Simi Valley, all of these things where it's more tech-based. Think Steve Jobs and Apple, where he came out with something that made life easier. Like as much as they say that they're smartphones, they've also made it, in some cases, they make us stupid because we don't need to remember things the way that we used to. If you ask someone what's so and so's number, sometimes you don't know someone's number anymore the way that you used to, because before you had to know the number. Now you can ask your phone anything and it will pull up something. You can ask Siri, you can ask a bunch of different variations of, and it will walk you through the things that you need to be able to know. It will help you do the research. So you have a personal assistant that makes it so that you don't necessarily have to think as much. So tech is really looking at how to be able to make the inconvenient convenient in a way where they're able to use tech to do it, as opposed to someone using their personal experience. This is something that you can normally hand to someone to make things more efficient, and you don't have to be there to follow through on it. All you have to do is make sure that the tech that you're giving them is something that is sustainable. You can update it on your end, but you don't necessarily have to go out and be the technician that comes in and repairs it and things like that. So this is something where it normally takes more work, but once you're done, it's something that you can normally hand off and then focus on your next piece of tech. And then there's the franchisers. The franchises focus on replicating successful business models through franchising. So if you find a good business model and you say, you know what, I know this is something that makes a lot of sense. How do I take this? And if it's a local business, how do I put it someplace else and see if it can be equally as successful someplace else? So it's taking a great idea and a niche audience and then saying, you know what, there's pockets of these audiences all over. So I'm going to create a franchise that says, this is how you do this specific thing. And if you do it this way, you can do this a lot of different places and still be able to get the same level of results or better. So with the franchisor, you're really looking big picture and you're focusing more on your business model to make sure that you understand the nuance of it so that you can make sure that you can do it different places and test it with different audiences. Once you land on a good idea, then you figure out how to be able to get other people to invest in it and create what they're basically paying you for is they're paying you for the business model. So when you come up with a great business idea, a serial entrepreneur may end up in their own way being a franchisor because what they're doing is they're basically selling the business idea. Now, some cases, someone may sell it to an individual company. In other cases, a serial entrepreneur may say, you know what, instead of me selling the finished product, I'll sell the business idea and the process. So if you sell the process, that makes you more of a franchisor. If you sell the business, that makes you more of the serial entrepreneur that sells the whole finished product, and you hand that off to someone else to pick it up and take the reins from there. And then this brings us to, why does understanding your business type and entrepreneur type matter? It allows you to be more authentic. You can focus more on specific resources. It enhances your problem solving. If you know what kind of challenges and milestones that you want to be able to hit, then it allows you to focus more on what you need to be able to take care of to hit those milestones. It allows you to be able to focus more on the things that you should avoid so that you don't have to worry about some of the extra risks that come along with it. Let's go back to, if you're someone that's going into that wants to start their own business and you are scared that you don't want to blow through your savings, then you would most likely want to be in a simulator. Step into something where the business model already exists and then find ways for you to be able to profit doing it your way. If you're someone that is a bit more adventurous, then you may go in as a disruptor. Because as a disruptor, you can say, you know what? I know there's different ways to be able to address this. I'm going to show you my way because I'm so confident in the way that I'm doing it. you're going to be able to see that this is probably more efficient than the ways that are already out there. Now, I'm going to pause for a second because I think I see a question.
Yes,
Is
we have an
perfect.
excellent
Okay.
question. So why don't you go ahead and finish this slide, and then we'll do the question because it's a really good one, and I want to make sure that you get through this first.
Okay. Well, sustained motivation. It's something where when you're clear on your idea and you're confident about it, then it allows you to be clearer with how you communicate it to other people. When someone says, well, what's your business idea? You actually can put together an elevator pitch with a lot more ease because you're clear not just on the business idea, but how it aligns with who you are as a person. These are things that put together your unique value proposition, who you are, your core values, the things that you're going to always be able to rely on when it comes to the business, and what you're telling the audience that they can rely on with you. Strategic planning and decision making. When you know what it is that you're looking to do, what your definition of success is, it makes it easier for you to be able to plan for it. You can make smarter decisions. If you know you're not someone that's a big risk taker, then you're not going to put yourself in a position where you have to take those kind of decisions. If you know that you want to be able to have more time at home, then you're going to build something that allows you to be able to hire smart. So you're not just building a business model, you're building something that you know you can train someone else to be able to do so that you can take a step back. Risk mitigation and opportunity identification, same thing. And then personalized approach to business growth. When you know yourself and you put yourself in a great position to be able to be consistent, that's what people really are appreciate as an existing customer. It's nothing like getting in and realizing, okay, the moment you got my money, everything changed. Or, when I first ran into this person, I realized I thought they were this way. And then perception tells me after the fact that it's something else. You really just want to be able to make sure that you have a personalized approach because people buy from people that they feel a connection with. And if what you're doing isn't authentic, then you're not allowing yourself to be able to do that. Okay. And what is the question?
So the question is, of all of these models that you're
Hmm.
discussing today, are there ones that fail more before succeeding? Or how does that work with success rates with these different models?
That is a great question. And the answer to that is yes, all of them can fail. If you go into it and you don't go in with the right approach. But if we're talking about which ones succeed faster, the simulator, because you're going into something that already exists. When you're an innovator or you're a disruptor, an innovator has to basically introduce something to someone that's never heard of it before, has no reason to trust you. So you have to build up that level of trust. So that's a longer process. So one of the hardest things to be able to do is to get someone to change indifference or change the status quo. When someone creates a habit and they're used to that being a habit, you have to give them enough reason, a reason that's significant enough for them to decide that they want to do something different. So you have to give them the idea, and then you have to be able to show them the solution. And if you're an innovator, the solution doesn't necessarily exist. You're a visionary, so you're describing something. So an innovator is going to be someone that is more of a storyteller because they're taking what the vision that they have in their head and they are projecting it out to you in a way that if they describe it well enough, you feel like you see what they see. A disruptor has to be able to go up against the competitors that say, don't listen to him. If you listen to him, it'll cost us money to have to change to do things the way that he's doing it. Just keep doing it the way that we're doing it. Don't worry about him. He's a rabble rouser. He's just coming in, he's just trying to rock the boat. You don't have to trust him. We've been doing it this way forever. And then you still have the innovator part of it, where you still have to be able to get the audience to be able to believe in you enough to say, well, maybe he's got a point. Why should I keep doing it this way if I'm getting the results, but I'm not getting exactly what I want? So a disruptor really has to listen more. And that's why I started with the listen method, because you really have to be able to listen to what the challenges are. And then when you want to be able to convey that to an actual customer or the audience, you have to really be able to take back the words that they use and then repeat it back to them. That's why I say brand building is just as much about the audience as it is about you. Because when you use the listen method, you're listening to find out what it is that they're struggling with, what challenges that they have, what they're prioritizing. And then you're saying, you know what, based on what you said and the way that you explained it, I'm going to say, I heard you, and now here's the solution for it. And that's what you're actually marketing. You're marketing that you listened. And you're saying, I heard everything that you said you were struggling with. And now I'm going to explain it to you and say, here's the solution. Here's how I can address that problem. And here's why you should trust me. That's a lot longer of a sales process than something where if you walk into a pre-existing thing and just say, you know what, they charge $5, I'm going to charge $4.50. Or they do it this way, I do mine's a little bit different. It's almost like having a cookbook and everyone's using the same recipe, but what makes them different is someone says, you know, I add a touch of vanilla. So it's putting your little twist to something that's already out there. And that is a shorter sales process because they've already done the heavy lifting of convincing someone that it's a challenge that needs to be addressed. They should prioritize it. And then it's really just a matter of saying, okay, well, now how do I differentiate myself from everybody else when you already have the idea of this is something that I can address. Now, who do I decide between? So when you think about the customer journey, and we'll go into this, but what you're really looking at, depending on the type of entrepreneur that you want to be, if you're an innovator, then you're starting really, really early in the process where you actually have to plant the thought of there's a new way to be able to do something. Someone may go through and not realize that there's a better way to be able to do something. Like, for example, let's say Q-tips. Q-tips were great for years until a doctor said, you know what, you're actually doing damage and pushing more wax into your ear by using that. And all of a sudden, there was someone that said, you know what, there's a better way to be able to do that. I'm going to take a mini little spoon and I'm going to say, here, you can scoop it out instead. So that is something where if you look at it, that is a disruptor that basically came in and said, well, there's another way to be able to do it. But they also innovated by giving you the utensil to be able to do it with. So where you're saying there's always been a way of doing something, people are going to go with that because they think that's just a way to do it. So you have to be creative enough to be able to explain it so that people can say, what I'm trying to do is plant that initial thought, get you to be able to get interested enough, and then walk you through the rest of the sales process. Uh, I would say for small business owners, you want to catch them as early in the process as possible because by the time they start to catch up with the decision-making process of, well, who do I choose? When everybody else tries to join that conversation, you've been with them for so long that they're like, I already trust this guy. So when you're thinking about know, like, trust, what you're really trying to do is lean into that know as a small business owner and get them to like you and feel a connection. So by the time the larger businesses that are more of a chain, they can say, oh yeah, we can get that for you and take care of that real quick. Let's say home services, for example. You can go to Home Depot and get a lot of things, but there's still those specialists that will say, I can come in and do carpentry work. I can come in and do this. I can come in and do that. Painters, so many different things. Just because you can go to a chain to be able to get it, you might want that extra experience. You might want that expertise. That's where, if you take care of the things in an early stage and you guide people through that journey, by the time they realize that, well, I could go to Home Depot. Yeah, I could, but then I'd have to do it myself and I'd have to know all the things that you know. And I don't want to know all of that. So, what you're really trying to look at when you're thinking about the success of the different entrepreneurial types is what is the inconvenience that you're trying to make convenient? And who are you trying to target? Are you trying to target someone that has more time than money? Because that's going to be someone that you have to educate through the process. And what you're really charging them for is the education. Or are you trying to get an audience that has more money than time? They don't care about learning how to do it. They just want to know that someone can do it. So the more inconvenient something is, and you can make it convenient, the more likely it's going to be something where they're going to say, I would rather spend the money than to figure out how to do something that is really, really tedious. And somehow you figured out, I don't want to know how to be able to do that. I just want to know that it can be fixed. So when you're thinking through the entrepreneurial types, think through the problem that you're solving, the audience that you're trying to reach, and then align it with your actual personality. Are you more of a teacher or are you more solution orientated where you just want to be able to hand someone something and say, you know what, on to the next. Because if you're more of a, I'm going to give you the solution and I'm going to let you figure it out. If you're giving them an IKEA where, you sell them something and then they go and look at the instructions and go, this doesn't make any sense. Then you're probably a serial entrepreneur or someone that's going to say, you know what, I gave you enough for you to be able to work with. Figure it out, YouTube it, whatever you have to do. And if you really need help, then you can come in and stand online and talk to our customer service and say, well, it's missing this part. Why do I not have this part? It says there should be 10 of them. I only have 5. Those are the types of things that you want to think about. It's not just about getting the sale. What you also have to think about is what comes after the sale. So is it something that you know that you're going to want to be able to continue to educate that person on after the sale? Because if not, then you're probably going to want to do something that you can just kind of hand off and then on to the next thing.
Awesome. Thank you. So much good advice in that answer.
Okay. Was there anything else or
No, we're
any?
good right now. So carry on with your presentation because I want to make sure that we get through all of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then this just kind of answered the question, leveraging your entrepreneurial type. You can tailor your business strategy to your strengths. You can address potential weaknesses proactively, set realistic expectations and goals, build complementary teams, seek appropriate mentorship and resources, and adapt your leadership style to your type. So let's just unpack this a bit. So tailor your business strategies to your strengths. This is personality based. I am a solution oriented person. I have been told that if I have to tell someone the same things too many times, even if I don't know it, somewhere in there I start getting frustrated because I'm saying, I know I gave you clear instructions. What happened? Where there are also times where if I'm talking to someone that's early stage, I know I have to be really, really patient and walk them through things in a way that makes sense. So what I'm doing is I'm gauging in on the level of expertise someone tells me that they have. So that's why I normally start with an assessment with anything that I do. I want to gauge what you've already done. So then this way I can answer what it is that you specifically need, as opposed to walk someone through something that they may have already done. Have you ever called support and you've troubleshooted all these different things yourself, but you call into support and the person's like, oh, well, have you tried this? Yes. Have you tried this? Yes. Can we skip to the 5th thing on the list as opposed to the first 4 that you want to run through? Because I just want to get to this solution. I just want to be able to fix this. That is tailoring your business strategy to your strengths. That's understanding addressing potential weaknesses proactively. Are you a really patient person that loves to be able to explain things to people and can't wait to get that aha moment? Then think through the type of entrepreneur that you would be. You're going to be someone that's going to be more educating on the process as opposed to the solution. Yes, you can make sure that they get the solution, but in some cases, you're giving them the information that they need so that they can create their own solution for themselves, as opposed to giving them something that says, here, this is a deliverable, take this. So a service is something where you're normally helping someone get to something themselves. A product is something that's transactional. When you pay me, you get this, and that's all you really need. Set realistic expectations and goals. If you know what kind of challenges you're going to be facing as an entrepreneurial type, then you know what to expect. For myself, I stepped out to being a disruptor. If I had any good sense, I probably would have went in and been in a simulator and started doing things the way that everybody else was doing it, so that I didn't have to worry about turning things around so quickly. Like I went into business and said, because I know so much about advertising and marketing, I should be able to step out and be able to run my business perfectly fine. One of the things that I realized was, again, I knew how to do things. I didn't necessarily know how to teach other people how to do things. So as much as I wanted to be able to work with small business owners, I was used to being able to explain things to people that were on the corporate side that did this for a living. When you're talking to someone that's never done any of it and you have to explain it to them from the beginning all the way through the process, their starting point was different than my starting point. So I had to learn to be able to understand where their starting point was and start there and not skip any steps. So where I have issues with what I call the gurus that are out there, and they'll say, well, here's how you can make 10, 6 figures. There's a lot of steps that lead up to being able to get to the point of making 6 figures. Don't just give someone steps 1, 5, and 10 You have to be able to fill in all the space so that they can understand how to get there. And if they fall back or they miss something, they can understand how to take, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. You have to be able to figure out how to be able to fill in the blanks of the things that you don't know that you need to know. Build complementary teams. This is where you scale to the point where you can start to bring other people in. One of the pressures that comes along with bringing other people in is it's no longer just about you. It's something where now your decisions affect other people and their livelihood. Seek appropriate mentorship and resources. When you can say what type of entrepreneur you want to be and you can understand the milestones and challenges, then you can actually explain to people where your struggles are, as opposed to saying, well, I'm struggling being able to get customers. There's more to it than that, and there's more nuance. We would need to go through and say, well, are you struggling to get customers because of you can't get that initial conversation, that initial contact, or are you struggling to get customers because you get them to your website and then after a certain point you lose them, or you get them on the phone and then you lose them. There's going to be different ways to be able to address each thing. And that brings us to the end. And just again, to kind of recap, there's the simulators, the innovators, this, the disruptors, the scalers, the social entrepreneurs, the serial entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs, the lifestyle entrepreneurs, the technopreneurs, and the franchisers. So you're not necessarily going to be one, but you can be variations of any of these. And the one thing that I would highlight is there are three that you're normally going to consider, the three main ones, and I start with those, the assimilator, the innovator, and the disruptor. Everything else is kind of a variation of it. And it's where you can start to go into more nuance when it comes down to the type of entrepreneur that you would be. And then the key takeaway, each type has its unique strengths and challenges. Understanding your type, it illuminates your natural entrepreneurial strengths. It highlights areas for potential growth and development. It helps anticipate and prepare for challenges. And your type isn't a limitation, but a springboard for success. You'll be able to kind of walk through the entrepreneur DNA, identify your primary and secondary goals, assess how your type aligns with your current business model. If you are listening to this and you realize that you've built a business model as a disruptor, but you're saying, why am I struggling so much and I'm running out of savings? Then start looking at ways to assimilate into something that already exists. And then once you generate the revenue that you need to, then you can always come back to that idea. So there are frameworks that I have, and one of the frameworks, as an example, is pause. So it's without going into all the details and going into a completely different conversation, it's having a great idea. It's just not the right time for it. So go to market with what you know you can actually be profitable with, what the audience is saying, give me this. And then once you get that audience and once you start generating revenue, then you can start focusing on that idea that you really want to, the one that you're really passionate about. And that's how you can be able to fund that without spending that money out of your savings. So one of my things is always, I want you to pay for things out of your profits instead of out of your pocket. Because if you're digging in your savings, it's going to cause you to be able to make rash decisions. It gets to a point where it's emotional. Well, I got to take on this client, even though you know that there's red flags. We want you to be able to avoid those things. And that's the whole point to all of this. When you can look at your business journey, then you can build something around the type of person that you are. You can build something that aligns with the business idea of what you're hearing from the audience, but also something that allows you to be able to think about how things are going to go in the future. One of the ways that I would describe it is if you've ever gone to a concert, because a lot of my background and where I got my start was in the music industry. The shortest version of this story is when I was about 6, 7 years old, I told a Monopoly story. At the same time, my mother started working at Atlantic Records and Atco Records, which is now Elektra Records. And she worked in a data processing team. And one of the things, my mother being my hero, so it's one of those things of you want to learn every single thing that she's doing. I would go with her to her job, and in the data processing team, that's where they ran the reports. So they would run the reports for all the different departments, sales, marketing, promotion, A&R. And I would say, well, why are they running this report? I don't know, Sean. Why don't you ask them? I will ask them. So I started to learn which ones were weekly reports, which ones were monthly reports, which ones were one-off reports. And when they ran the reports, I would go around with them when they delivered the reports and say, why did you run this report? And that's when I got the understanding of there's some reports where you just want to be able to get the regular data, see how things are tracking. And then there are some times where they would run reports where there were specific things that popped up and they said, I think I see a trend or something's off and I'm not sure what it is. So I'm running this report to figure out why that they're doing that. And then those are the things where I started to pick up on this is why it's important to understand the process. Because I got to ask all of those questions from 7, 8 years old to the point where I started interning until I started working there to the point where I got to the point where I understood if someone had ran into a challenge and they were like, oh, well, like this just happened. Well, did you run this report? Where did you even get that information from? It's because I've been watching for years to know that when this happens, normally this aligns with it. So you want to understand the process because we are creatures of habit. The game changes. I mean, the game stays the same. The process changes. So overall, the framework of what you're working in, supply and demand, or for small businesses, demand and supply, stays exactly the same. What changes is the way that we go about doing it. AI is changing the process. There are a lot of different things that come along that makes things more efficient, but the same process is the overall concept is the same, just the way that you go about doing it is different. So when you're looking at how to be able to apply it, you want to think about what you can do, not just now, but what you're comfortable being consistent with. So I brought up the music industry to be able to say, if you've ever gone to a concert and you've seen someone that's been doing these albums for years and they get to a certain point where they just put the mic out to the audience and lets the audience sing, it's because they created a song that it was great to them in the moment, but after 5, 10, 15 years, you get tired of singing that song. It's all kind of things that are attached to it where like maybe that was a song that was based on them having a broken heart. How often are you going to want to think back to that moment and sing it with the same feeling of having that broken heart? So when you're thinking through your entrepreneurial type, think through what aligns with your personality because you want to be authentic because eventually what happens if you're not authentic, people see it. And then you put all that work into building something that doesn't necessarily align with who you are. And then who you are starts to creep out and that perception is ruined. So where you're building a reputation, build a reputation around who you are. So for introverts, I give them very specific information on how to be able to leverage their customers. If you're not comfortable talking to people, then create a product that allows you to be able to get your customers to talk for you. Lean more into the results that you're getting. So then this way you can say case studies, customer success stories. Let your customers do the talking for you and then just promote that and have something where it's an affiliate or referral or loyalty and rewards program, something where you reward them for doing the things that you know that you don't want to do. The making it inconvenient convenient goes both ways. If you build your business the right way, you can have something where you're making something that's inconvenient for them convenient, but you can also find ways to be able to say, well, I know my personality. There's certain things that I don't want to do. I need to figure out how to get the audience to do that part for me or get an employee to do that part for me. Bake that into your business, but that's part of your entrepreneurial DNA. That's understanding yourself and being authentic enough to say, I know me, and eventually this is going to come out this way. So let me prepare for those things and put myself in a position so that even if it's great for the moment, what's going to happen next? Self reflection, do a business assessment, kind of take a look and see. We've got entrepreneurial types, you've got the listen method. Is there anything that you have to think through that doesn't align with your business model? If your business is built one way and you're realizing, you know what, yeah, this isn't really a good fit, then start to look through at your business model to see how can I align this more with my personality so that even when I'm having a bad day, the client doesn't know I'm having a bad day. Okay. And then remember, your entrepreneurial type is a powerful tool. It's not a rigid category. There's going to be times where you're going to be half of one, 6 dozen of one, half a dozen of the other. It's meant for you to be able to kind of pick and choose because it's not always going to be the same thing. It depends on where you're at in your business. Every time you hit a new level, you hit new challenges. So you may start off one way, but then you get to another level and then you realize, okay, now I need to be this type of entrepreneur to reach this definition of success. Embrace your unique strengths. Success comes from aligning your approach with your natural inclinations and keep learning, growing, and refining your entrepreneurial skills. Uh, if you want to be able to reach me, my SeanMAtkinson.com is the website. There'll be a link. There's a QR code. I realize I cut this very, very close to time, so I do apologize for that. But I did want to address one piece of feedback where someone said, "You read through all the slides." This is why I read through slides. If I don't, I could wander off and then I go off of time, and then I want to be mindful of everybody else's time. So hopefully this has still been helpful. And again, if you have questions, check out the article. You can go to majority.media. There'll be an article um, for those that are watching. There'll be an article. You can use that, and that will lead you to the workbook. For those that are actually attending, Jenny is doing a great job about making sure that you get these things in your inbox so that you don't have to go through all of those extra steps. So thank you, Jenny.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And we'll definitely make sure that that email gets out quickly this week. Okay, so we have a couple questions,
Oh,
and
perfect.
so we'll do quick answers. We have an attendee today who says, if I have a novel take on an established product in a multi-billion-dollar industry, how do I get my brand to market, especially with limited funds and resources?
Piggyback what they're already doing and cherry pick some of the people in that list that appreciate the nuance that you give, as opposed to the regular way that it's already being done. That's the shortest answer that I can give to that, but that is straight to the point of follow the people that are already doing it, and then read through the comments. Goes back to the listen method. Just read through where people are saying, I wish somebody did it this way, and then start a conversation with them and poach their client. Now, I mean, it's a cold way to be able to do it, but I would say if you're going to do it to someone that's well established as a large audience. Don't do it on a small business level. It is really, really annoying when someone goes through the process of creating a post or doing something like that, and someone steps in and tries to poach their client. If you do it to a large chain, it doesn't stand out as much. If you do it on a small level, you will become a viper and people will start to figure out ways to be able to go back after you, and that's not what you want. So do that to large companies, listen for what it is they're talking about, spark a conversation, and use your nuance as the introduction to a new way to be able to do something.
Okay. So, next question. I believe I am an assimilator, so
Mhm.
seeing a gap, but the solution will disrupt what is the norm now. It's for people who have time but not money.
Mhm.
Who or what existing business would be an example of this type? So, someone whose success they can, kind of learn about and follow.
Uh, there's a lot of different ones. I would say go back through the slides and we'll and pull the example that I have there and then start your research there. But overall, what you're doing is you're more of a disruptor if you're trying to introduce something new and tell them that there's a different way to be able to do it. The fact that it's an existing industry doesn't change the fact that you're looking to disrupt things and say, don't do it this way, do it this way. So you're looking more as a disruptor, and what you're really looking at being able to do is uh, start early in the customer journey so that you can try to introduce yourself to people early enough so that they start looking at you instead of some of these other examples. And if you are dealing with people with more time than money, then you're an educator. And what you need to do is work on blog articles. You need to do interviews, things like that, so that when people start saying, how do I figure out how to do this and how to's and Siri this and Siri that, or YouTube this, YouTube that, you want to have enough content out there where they say, you know what, this person is always talking about these things. And people have great things and great responses to the content that you're putting out there. Google has one job. They're meant to give you the best results on the question that you're asking. So if you put a lot of great content out there based on what it is that you're doing, Google will self-select you. You don't have to necessarily worry about doing paid ads with SEO to get to the top. If you're putting quality content out there, they will present you as the best option because you're answering the questions in the way that they need to be answered.
Fantastic. Well, we are at time. We have multiple thanks coming in the chat and Q&A box, Sean. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And thank everyone. So Sean, amazing information today, so helpful. And remember that we have one more hour with Sean next Wednesday. So we hope to see you back next week. And also, thank you to everyone who attended. Great questions, and glad that you are here and getting some ideas for your entrepreneurial type, what it means for your business, all of these things that Sean is going through, from the listen method to, the type and then the customer journey. It will provide value for you for sure. So thank you for being with us today. And as I shut things down, there will be a survey if you have a few minutes to give us
Please,
feedback. We do
please.
really appreciate hearing from you. We do look at the survey results and go over things.
Mhm.
So we appreciate it when you make your voice heard and let us know how things went and what else we can help you with. So with that, I will shut things down. And again, thank you, Sean, and have a lovely rest of your day, everyone. Bye-bye.